listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Marie Murphy. I'm a relationship coach, and I help people who are engaging in anything they think counts as infidelity to deal with their feelings, clarify what they want, and make decisions about what they're going to do. No shame, no blame, and no judgments. If you would like my help sorting out your infidelity situation, let's work together. You can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. Now, sometimes two people meet and they fall in love, and it's a very beautiful thing. And they're both deliriously happy and they're really excited to be together, and they've never felt better or more alive, and everything is great except for one small problem. They're both married to other people. If you're in this situation, or if you've ever been in this situation, you know that if you're married and you're having an affair with someone who is also married, there are a whole lot of variables on the table. There's you, there's your affair partner, there's the way the two of you feel about each other, and then there's your marriage, and there's your affair partner's marriage, and there's your spouse, and there's their spouse, and there's what you think you want to do about your marriage and what they think they want to do about their marriage. And then, of course, there's what you and your affair partner think about the relationship you have with each other. And then some, of course, right? And all of this stuff can be a lot to contend with. Even if you're not too attached to a particular outcome, and even if you feel pretty well centered within yourself, this can just be a lot of relationship stuff to juggle in your mind and in your heart. And then what starts to happen sometimes in a situation like this is that you do start to develop an idea of what you want and how you want the situation to unfold. And you do start to become attached to a particular outcome. And your affair partner starts to have their own desires too about how they want the situation to unfold. And then maybe little by little, or maybe all of a sudden, the two of you start making plans for the future that are contingent upon each other and upon each other's actions in other areas of your life. And here's what this can look like in practice. You meet someone amazing and you get to be friends, and then you get to be great friends. And then you learn that your amazing person is unhappy in their marriage, just like you've been unhappy in your marriage. And this becomes a point of bonding for the two of you. And then some chemistry develops, and then it becomes clear that your relationship with the new amazing person you've met is more than just a friendship. And then things start to happen, and pretty soon you're totally and completely besotted with one another. And for a while, just being able to be together at all in a limited capacity may be great. Just the fact that the two of you have found each other and are able to spend time together may be enough. But then you start to want more of each other, and you start to think seriously about what it might be like to leave your marriage and be fully available to your affair partner. And you wonder what it might be like if your affair partner were fully available to you too. And then you talk to your affair partner about this, and it turns out they've been thinking similar things. And then you feel overwhelmed with excitement for what seems like an amazing development. And you want nothing more than to rush off into the sunset with your affair partner and live happily ever after. And, on the one hand, you might recognize that it might not be quite as simple as that. But on the other hand, the whole thing just seems so amazingly great. And you love your affair partner so much. And you know they love you too. And you just want to be able to be with them all of the time without any restrictions. So the two of you start making actual plans. Maybe the two of you decide that you're each going to leave your marriage. And then the plan, of course, is for the two of you to be able to have an above board relationship after you both get divorced. And although you're not actually like putting down a deposit on a shared living space, such as an apartment just yet, the idea that you've been entertaining together of your shared future is so intoxicating. The whole thing sounds so great and so wonderful. And you're just totally ready for your glorious future with them to begin. But then, as the two of you begin to put your plans into motion, interesting things might start to happen. Perhaps one party in your affair starts to lose interest in the let's ride off into the sunset together plan as soon as it's time to actually take any kind of action. Sometimes there ends up being a big difference between talking about leaving a marriage and actually leaving a marriage. Sometimes people just can't bring themselves to leave, even if they really want to. And sometimes people decide that when push comes to shove, they don't actually want to leave their marriage. Sometimes when people start to take steps to leaving their marriage, they begin to see their marriage in a totally different light. And that could happen to you, and that could happen to your affair partner. And if this happens for your affair partner, you might totally freak out. Maybe you have begun the process of leaving your marriage very efficiently. And now it seems like your affair partner isn't going to uphold their end of the plan you made to leave your marriages so the two of you could be together. And so maybe you feel hurt and abandoned by your affair partner, and you start to doubt the possibility of a future relationship with them. And in that context, perhaps you begin to reconsider your relationship with your spouse. Maybe you start to see your spouse as a pretty darn good bird in the hand. Maybe your affair partner seemed amazing, but given their recent hesitation, you're starting to wonder if they can be counted on. And so you find your own resolve starting to waver. Maybe you start to wonder if your affair was just a beautiful moment in time, but not something that was destined to last. And so maybe you do retreat from the affair and re-engage in your marriage, and it's as simple as that, and that's the end of the story. Or maybe just as soon as you start to seriously doubt your affair partner, they figure their shit out and come bounding back to you and tell you that they really do want to be with you. And then you end up feeling even more confused than you were before. And then you and your affair partner get into a whole bunch of highly charged, intensely emotional discussions about what your future looks like together and who's moving fast enough to leave their marriage. And the whole thing turns into a very intensely dramatic saga that consumes every waking minute of your life and perhaps prevents you from sleeping too. Or so many possibilities here. Or maybe your affair partner has begun the process of leaving their marriage with shocking efficiency. Maybe they basically went home after the two of you decided that you wanted to give your relationship a real try outside of the affair bubble. And they told their spouse they were leaving, and then they moved out the next day, and then they filed for divorce the next week. And maybe this very swift behavior kind of bewilders you. Maybe you're kind of alarmed by what you think seems to be their total disregard for their marriage and perhaps their family as a whole, if there's family involved. And in addition to being surprised by the swiftness of their actions, you're also surprised by how much pressure they're putting on you to leave your own marriage ASAP. And you're starting to feel a little claustrophobic and a little turned off. And you may end up pulling away from your affair partner a little bit. And then they freak out because they notice you pulling away. And then you feel even more turned off because they seem so needy. But you also feel so guilty because they've already left their spouse for you. And just weeks ago, or maybe even days ago, you pledged your undying love to them. And you told them that you did indeed want to leave your marriage and you did want to be with them. And they believed you. And you meant it at the time. And they took action based on your conversation. And now you aren't so sure of what you want, but you know you're mighty uncomfortable seeing your affair partner suffering and kind of blaming you for their suffering, right? Now, of course, these are just some examples of what can happen, right? If you're having an affair with someone who is also married, and you and your affair partner start making plans for the future together, there are all kinds of interesting things that can ensue. So, given this, if you're in a situation where you're married and your affair partner is married and you're starting to make decisions together or starting to think about building a future together, here are two things that I encourage you to keep in mind. The first is the inclination you may have to make decisions based on what your affair partner is doing or not doing. The second thing is to be aware of making your emotional state dependent upon what your affair partner does or does not do. Let me talk a little bit about what this might look like. For example, if we're married and our affair partner is also married and we're considering getting divorced, we may base our decision about whether or not we get divorced on whether or not our affair partner decides to get divorced, right? It's just one example, but it's an important one. Now, here's an example of what the second thing may look like. If our affair partner says they're going to get divorced and then they don't, we may feel terrible and we may believe that we can't be happy unless our affair partner gets divorced and we get to be with them. Again, that's just an example, but it's an important one. Here's the tricky thing. Making decisions about a shared future with another person who you care about is part of what makes a relationship for many people. Building a vision of a shared future with your affair partner may be wonderful. It may be a really enjoyable and exciting thing to talk about together. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's, of course, entirely possible that you may indeed turn your shared visions into your reality. But if the kind of relationship you and your affair partner want to have is something other than an affair, something other than a covert relationship, there may be things you need to do in order to make that possible. Specifically, you may have to get divorced. It's possible that there are other things you could do instead, of course, right? Like you could ask for an open relationship, or I don't know, you could get separated, or who knows? Like, who knows what it is? But if you want to, have the possibility of having a monogamous relationship with your affair partner and you might want to marry them in the future, you may have to get divorced from your current spouse first, right? And your affair partner is going to have to do the same kind of things. And whatever those things are, whether it's divorce or something else, it's going to be a process that entails multiple steps. And I don't mean to suggest that divorce or any other relationship transition has to be difficult, but I do want to underscore that if we're currently married and we want to have an above board relationship with another person, we may need to do some things in order to get there. And that means we have to be willing to do those things and to go through all of the emotions that we may feel in the process of doing those things, whether it's getting divorced or something else. And that is not in any way a bad thing, but it may be an uncomfortable thing. And we do need to be aware of that and willing to go through it. And that's beautiful. The other thing we need to keep in mind is that we can only be willing to get divorced for ourselves or make our way through a relationship transition for ourselves. We can only be willing to make it through the emotions that come with our relationship transition for ourselves. We can't make our affair partner willing to get divorced. We can't make our affair partner willing to go through the emotions they may experience in the process of getting divorced. And if that's a prerequisite for the two of you to be together in the way you want to be together, you have to be willing to get your own divorce or do your own relationship transition thing, whatever that may be. And you have to be willing to let go of any attempt to control what your affair partner does. Only they can get themselves divorced. You can't do it for them, right? And of course, you may know this intellectually. And of course, you may agree that this is logically true. But understanding this intellectually and really understanding this and accepting this can be a little harder. For a lot of people who are considering leaving a marriage, especially if the marriage is good enough in many ways or pretty good in some respects, or if the person's fear of leaving the marriage is pretty high, it may seem to only make sense for them to leave the marriage if they are sure their affair partner will be waiting for them on the other side of their divorce. And this is so human and so understandable because so many of us desperately want security and comfort and stability. We may get these things from our marriage and appreciate these aspects of our marriage, even if we aren't all that happy in our marriage and we know that we very much want to have experiences in life that are not available to us within the container of our marriage. So it's totally reasonable to want security and stability and comfort, right? But when we start to make decisions in pursuit of those feelings, we often create some kind of trouble for ourselves. And this applies to all kinds of situations in life, some which have to do with other relationship scenarios, but some that have nothing to do with relationships or romantic partnerships. But in the context of what we're talking about today, here's what this might look like. If we're desperate for security and stability and comfort, we may choose between one relationship and another based on whether or not we think we're going to get more of those things from a particular relationship or a particular set of decisions about our relationships. If you prize security and comfort and stability above all else, you may choose to stay with your spouse, even if you really want to be in an above board relationship with your affair partner. You may decide that you're better off staying with your spouse because the future without them is so uncertain and you don't like that uncertainty one bit. Let me stress that that's not a terrible thing to choose. If you are happy with the decision to prioritize the safety and comfort of your marriage over new possibilities, that is okay. There's no such thing as an objectively right or wrong decision or an objectively good or bad decision. But we do have the choice between making decisions consciously and deliberately and making them haphazardly. We have the choice between letting our fears drive our decisions or being willing to work with our fears so that we can feel them and digest them without letting them drive the bus. Pursuing comfort is fine if you're okay with the potential costs of doing so. We don't have to let fear run the show, right? And one of the common costs or likely costs of prioritizing safety and comfort and stability and letting fear drive the bus is that we may not give ourselves a chance to go after what we really want in life. Going after what we want almost always involves a certain amount of risk and a certain amount of discomfort. And when we make avoiding risk and discomfort our primary goal, we usually end up limiting our dreams and our goals and limiting our efforts to go after them. And again, if you're okay with the opportunity costs, that's totally fine. But if you really want something, it may not be comfortable to get it. And recognizing that and trusting that that's okay is important. It's also important to be clear about how our desire for safety and comfort and security may impact our relationships beyond our decisions about whether or not to stay married to our spouse. If we're desperate for security and comfort and stability and certainty, we may look to our affair partner to provide us with those things. We love them so much and we know they love us and we want to be with them and we know they want to be with us. And we may then expect them to reassure us that they're really going to leave their marriage. We may pressure them to tell us what their timeline is. We may freak out if they haven't done the things we think they should have done within a particular time frame. So for instance, maybe you've already told your spouse that you want to leave the marriage and you don't want to do couples counseling and you've hired a mediator and the process is moving right along, but your affair partner hasn't even told their spouse that they want to have a conversation about something important. And you may be going insane about this. You may believe that your affair partner's pulled out the rug from underneath you, like you've done all the things to leave your marriage and you're losing that safety and certainty of that relationship. And now your affair partner isn't providing you with the safety that you thought they were going to provide you with. And you may want all the reassurances from your affair partner that they really do want to be with you and that they're going to prove it by having the conversation with their spouse today, right? If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Doing this kind of stuff will have many consequences, but one of them is that the quality of your relationship with your affair partner will be affected. If you're putting all kinds of pressure on them to get on with the plan and you're depending on them for reassurance and certainty and comfort and safety and security, you're not going to feel great when you interact with them, which is important. And they're probably not going to love being pressured by you, right? And then this beautiful relationship that the two of you have may take on an entirely different character, right? And one possibility here is that you may end up driving them further away from you instead of drawing them closer, which is probably what you really want. Sometimes when we're desperate for connection, we end up pursuing it in ways that ultimately interfere with our connections or our capacity to make connections. And sometimes when we're intent on finding connection with others or fostering connections with specific people, we disconnect from ourselves. And when we do this, we're going to feel lonely or wanting or untethered, no matter who we're with or not with, right? An interesting paradox of relationships is that the more we think we need them or have to have them or need them to be a certain way, they may elude us. And the more we're able to be content without a particular relationship or any relationship, or without a particular relationship being a particular way, the more likely we are, A, to feel better in the short term, in the present, and B, to eventually get more of what we want. And what this means is that we have to be willing to do a really interesting dance with our desires. We have to be able to allow ourselves to have our desires, whether it's for a relationship in general or a relationship with a particular person. And we also have to be willing to unclench our grip on these desires. Most of us are not terribly practiced in this. And thus, we may find this to be a very difficult thing to do. If you very much want to continue your relationship with your affair partner and you really want to be able to be with them outside of the affair bubble, it may seem like a catastrophe if they aren't proceeding with their divorce in the manner in which you would like them to. And if you believe that that means that your relationship is never going to happen and the two of you are never going to get to be together, you may feel devastated, right? Can you allow yourself to desire a future with your affair partner without trying to force that outcome into being? Can you allow yourself to really want to be with your affair partner without being devastated by the uncertainty of not knowing exactly what's going to happen? My answer to those questions is an emphatic hell yes, you can. What you need to be able to do in order to do this is to learn how to feel your feelings so that you can enjoy pleasurable feelings without clinging to them like life rafts, and tolerate uncomfortable feelings without them having to flatten you. And I can teach you how to do all this, right? And when we're able to do this, when we're able to make our way through life processes that may well take time and faith to get through, like getting divorced or like waiting for our affair partner to get divorced, without letting our emotions toss us around, everything becomes completely different, right? Now, I want to say that there's a piece of advice out there that we've referenced on this podcast before that's really relevant to today's topic. And that is that you should never make a decision to leave a marriage for someone else, right? I've been talking so far as if, people do make decisions to leave a marriage for someone else, right? But the idea that many people put forth is that your decision about your marriage should be totally and completely separate from your decision about what you want to do with your relationship with your affair partner. I think something that a lot of people say is that you should never leave a marriage for someone else. You should leave it for you. And I think this advice is very well intentioned, and I think it speaks to some important stuff. But in practice, it can be very difficult to completely separate your decision about your marriage from your thinking about your affair partner or your desire to be in a relationship with your affair partner. when I work with clients who are in the process of making these kinds of decisions, we work on disentangling the questions to the greatest extent possible. We work on making the decisions about the marriage and about the affair to the greatest extent possible. But that's really all we can do. We can separate these things so much and only so much. And that's all we need to do. There are a lot of decisions in life that can't be completely isolated from related decisions, right? If you're married to someone and you're also in love with someone else, we can't press a button and take away your love for the affair partner for the sake of making a decision about your marriage, right? And nor would we want to. We have to deal with reality as it is, and that's not a bad thing, no matter how messy reality may seem. And I promise you that even the seemingly most messy or complicated situations are usually a whole lot simpler than they may seem. And if you want to see how that can be true for you, then you need to schedule a coaching session with me, which you can do through my website. I do want to emphasize something, which is that you probably want to make a decision about your marriage that will feel good to you no matter what. Or at least that's what I encourage you to do. Even if your decision about your marriage is partially related to your decisions about your affair partner, you want to feel like you made the right decision about your marriage, no matter what happens or doesn't happen with you and your affair partner. And by making the right decision or feeling good about the decision, I don't mean that you will never have any unpleasant feelings about leaving your marriage or about getting divorced. Okay. It may sound ironic, but making a decision you feel good about does not mean that you will feel good all the time as a result of your decision. But it does mean that you believe you did what was right for you. You do believe that you made the right choice based on all of the information you had at hand, no matter what happens later. Okay. So, given that, if your decision about whether or not you stay in your marriage is contingent upon your affair partner's decisions about whether or not they stay in their marriage, then we may have a bit of a problem. If you want to get divorced and you also want to have a relationship with your affair partner, that's one thing. But if you want to get divorced, if and only if your affair partner gets divorced, that's another thing. And I mention this for a few reasons. One is sometimes people get divorced and their affair partner doesn't. And then the person who did get divorced believes they made a terrible choice, right? Now, if you really want to be with your affair partner and you get divorced, it's one thing to be really sad if your affair partner doesn't leave their marriage when they said they were going to leave their marriage, right? That might be incredibly sad for you. You may have really wanted to be with them. But there's a big difference between being really sad that the relationship with your affair partner didn't work out and making that mean that you should have stayed married because of your affair partner's choices. Another thing that I want to mention is that it can be really easy to let your affair partner's decisions or lack of decisions distract you from making your own decisions. If you think they should have made a choice about whether or not they want to leave their marriage already, chances are you may be avoiding making a few decisions of your own, right? If you're all caught up on whatever they're doing or not doing in regards to leaving their marriage, that can be an indication that it's time for you to focus on your own business. And I want to make it really clear that this can happen, focusing on what our affair partner is doing versus on what we're doing can happen without us realizing what's going on, because it may seem totally legitimate for us to be very concerned about what our affair partner is doing or not doing, right? It may seem like our life depends on whether or not our affair partner has told their partner they want a divorce or has hired a mediator or has moved out, right? But actually, our life depends on our decisions. It does not depend on our affair partner's decisions, no matter how much we adore them and want to be with them. What we have to be able to do when we're considering leaving one relationship with the hope that by doing so, we are making room for the possibility of allowing another relationship to flourish is to get really clear on what we have the power to control and take responsibility for those things. And when we can do this, everything gets a whole lot simpler and a whole lot easier and a whole lot better And when we can do this, it's a lot easier to develop a different relationship with the many things we don't have the power to control, which includes other people, such as our affair partner, and whatever they do or don't do. And one component of taking responsibility for ourselves and what we do have the power to control is learning how to relate differently to our emotions. We tend to really want the good stuff that comes with love. We tend to cling desperately to the good feelings that love brings. We tend to not want any of the difficult stuff. And we tend to try and resist all that stuff or figure out a way around all that stuff, such as, longing for someone who said they want to be with you, but isn't taking any steps towards leaving their spouse, right? Try as we might, though, it's really hard. Like impossible hard to engineer relationships that are all bliss and completely free of pain or sadness or conflict or uncertainty or discord. So one of the great opportunities we all have when we're navigating any relationship in our lives, no matter the circumstances, is to learn how to deal with our own emotions. When we learn how to feel the feelings we like to have and feel the feelings we don't like to experience, and when we make that our job instead of trying to engineer external circumstances, including other people's actions, so that we can always feel good and we don't have to feel bad, our relationships change dramatically and for the better, right? When we believe it's somebody's fault that we feel however we feel, or it's up to our partner to make us feel a certain way, we create so much suffering for ourselves. And we act in ways that impact the quality of our relationships, which then creates more suffering for us. On the other hand, when we take responsibility for navigating our own emotions, our relationships become so much more enjoyable, and navigating periods of uncertainty becomes so much less of a problem, right? Waiting for someone to do something that they said they were going to do when you really want them to do it may always come with a bit of anxiety and yearning and uncertainty. And feeling all of that stuff may never be awesome. But when we know that we can feel all of that stuff without it being a bad thing, we're in a so much more powerful position to enjoy our lives and enjoy our relationships and create more of the kinds of relationships we want to have. Okay, that is what I have for you today. If you would like my help navigating your infidelity situation, you can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. I offer confidential, compassionate coaching via Zoom, which means we can work together no matter where you're located. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing week. I will talk to you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.